Hello, family whom I love so much. Welcome to another posting of a character trait lesson. We've been studying about the character trait of courage, having this courage inside of us so that when we face something that we're afraid of, that we are just brave enough to move forward, knowing that it is the right thing to do. We've talked about how we need to be facing anything that we're afraid of. We've talked about standing up for what you believe. That's kind of a tough one. You're going to sometimes be made fun of because of the things that you believe. And we've talked about standing up, being courageous for that. And we've talked about having the courage to stand up for you, to be who you are. You don't need anybody else in the world to tell you what to think or look like or believe or act like. Be grateful that you're you. Today, we have one more characteristic that we're going to talk about. Any guesses? What would it be? There are many times that you will face when you need to have the courage to say no. Sometimes we'll tell ourselves, I think I would really like to put this in my body. We need to have the courage to say, no, that's not good for me. Or we might they'll tell ourselves, the only way I can win is to cheat. Only way I can pass this test is to cheat. And we have to have the courage to tell ourselves, no. Anything that we tell ourselves to do something when we know we're not supposed to, we need to have the courage to say no. But the hardest time we will have to say no, oftentimes, is when there is negative peer pressure in our life. What does that mean? Negative peer pressure is when we are with a group of people who are trying to get us to do something that we know is not right. For example, let's say one of your friends found a package of cigarettes and they're taking you and a few other friends behind the bleachers at the football field, and you're going to try to smoke one of these cigarettes. And you don't want to do it. You know it's not right, but everybody else is doing it. And you say, no, I don't think I will. And they say, oh, you're a big chicken. That's called peer pressure. Or in your society that you grow up in, drugs. Oh, never, 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 ever take drugs. Don't even be pressured into that at all. Or alcohol. All of those things that they might want to get you to take into your body is peer pressure when these friends around you are trying to get you to do that. Even if they tell you you're a chicken, you're going to have the strength to say no. How about watching a movie? We talked about that earlier. Watching a movie that you know you're not supposed to, or a magazine that you know is really bad. Those are called peer pressure when the people around you want you to do these kind of things. What else? Okay, how about this? A group of people that you like are bullying someone that you know. They're making fun of him and taunting him or her. Do you have the courage to walk away from that? Do you have the courage to stand up for that person? Or maybe these people that you're with are talking about somebody negatively and just saying horrible, terrible things. Do you have the courage to stand up to your friends and say, well, I know something good about that person? These are the situations that we need to have courage for and say no to. How about doing something dangerous? I remember hearing a story about a group of young men who were on a high cliff and there was a body of water below. And this young man was scared. He did not want to do it. But the friends were saying, oh, you big chicken, you've got to try it, you big chicken. And he did, and he jumped off, and he landed crooked in a way that it made him paralyzed when it was all said and done the rest of his life, because he didn't have the courage to stand up to his friends and say no. So this is going to be a big assignment for you, but it's really important. What I want you to do is to, as a family, with your parents and your brothers and sisters, turn off this video. And then I want you to think of every single situation that you might face where you have to say no, and talk about it, role play it, and then write it down. Talk about what you will do when you're caught in the situation. Maybe, let's use the movie, that's a good example, is even you're at a party and the friends are starting to watch a really bad, horrible, nasty movie that you know that you're not supposed to watch. Think about that with your brothers and sisters and parents, and decide what you're going to do, how you're going to handle it, and what you're going to say, and then write it down. Right now, if you make that decision, alcohol, drugs, when you're dating, things that you shouldn't do, any of those kind of situations. But if you make that situation right now, while everything's calm and your mind's right with you and you don't have all of that pressure upon you, write it down, make those decisions, and then when you're faced in that scenario, you will be strong enough to say no, because you've already made that decision, and it will save you lots of sorrow for later on when you become, if you get caught in that situation, lots of sorrow and lots of pain. So pause this video and then come back in a bit after you've done this assignment. Get out your grandma journals and write all of this down. Okay, I hope you took a big block of time. I hope you thought deeply and you made some good decisions, and it will bless your life later on. It really takes a lot of courage to say no. It takes a lot of courage to face any of our fears, but it's a characteristic that we need to have inside of us to be the kind of person that we want to be. So here's a little saying. Let's see. It takes a lot of courage to be a chicken. Think about that. It takes a lot of courage to be a chicken. When the people around you are saying, "Come on, you big chicken, you can taste this. It'll make you feel better. Come on, you big chicken." It takes a lot of courage to say no. It takes a lot of courage to say, "Yep, I'm a chicken. I won't do it." So actually, let me tell you a story about this before we go on. Little Cody and I were talking about this one day. He didn't quite understand what it meant to be, it took courage to be a chicken. And so I says, "Okay, Cody, what about one day you and your friends decide that you're going to sneak into the elementary school after dark. So you leave the door open and you plan this to go into the elementary school and cause a little bit of trouble." And he says, "Oh, Grandma, I would never do that." And I says, "But Cody, what about if," and then I had to scramble and think of all of his friends. I says, "What about if James and Dallin, they were pressuring you. They were saying, 'Come on, Cody, you'll be a big chicken if you don't.'" And his eyes get really big and he says, "Grandma, James and Dallin would never do that." And I thought, this is a good lesson right here. And that is, one way to stay out of trouble is to have good friends. Friends that believe the way you do. Friends who like to keep the law and keep the commandments. That is a secret to having a good life is the friends that you choose. But so do you understand what it means to take courage to be a chicken? Whenever people are pressuring you to do something that you don't want to do and that you know you should not do, you be brave enough to be a chicken. So your assignment is to take a paper and write, "It takes courage to be a chicken," across the top, and then draw a picture of a chicken, your very best drawing, and hang it someplace so that you can remember this lesson about being courageous. But there's one more thing I want to say before we end this lesson, and that is we talked a little bit about it before when we talked about keeping promises. If anybody is ever hurting you or be abusing you or doing anything to you that you do not want and you know that is not right, you have the courage to tell someone about it. Okay, promise? Okay, so we're going to end this lesson with, be courageous. Stand up for what is right, even if you have to stand alone. Okay, now are you remembering to write in your little character houses? We've talked about honesty. We've talked about courage. We've talked about all of these things about honesty. And these are the things we've talked about courage. Okay, this will be our last lesson on courage. The next post we will be starting to have another different character trait that we want inside of us so that it just becomes deep and automatic so that we become the best people that we can become. Always remember how much I love you, and always, always remember how wonderful you are.